Hi, my name is Lyle Wilds. I want to introduce myself. I spent 20 years growing up, 20 years messed up, 20 years locked up, but today I'm speaking up. And I'd like to talk to you about using punishment to address criminal behavior. So I'd like to do that by telling you a story. And the story is a story about a king. And the king has his kingdom, and he has all the people around the king. He has the king's men and the king's women. And then he has subjects that help him accomplish all that he wants to accomplish. And so as he does that, the father that I'm talking about, the king right now, has not had any disruptions in his kingdom. He's had people around the king, and the people around the king have talked to the subjects, and so they had a communication both ways. And the king heard what the subjects were saying, and the subjects heard what the king was saying, and they got along well. The kingdom was running without a lot of chaos. Then one day the king decides to retire, and when he decides to retire, he hands his kingdom down to his son. And when he gives it to his son thinks that his dad was way too soft on the subjects, and that he could have made a lot more money if he'd have run it differently. So the son, he wants to have it so that the subjects work harder, but he doesn't give them any extra money. And so it seems like the son has blocked off the communication between the subjects and the king. And the people around him are torn between the relationship between the subjects and the king. So as the king expects more output, the slaves get more frustrated, and as the slaves get more frustrated, there starts to be some dissension. And as this frustration is building, one of the slaves says to one of the king's men, I'd like to ask the king for more resources for our families. So he takes it to the king, comes back down and says, the king has rejected all of your requests, but he is willing to give you an accountant, a counselor, help you address your family problems and help you address your income. So he said, that's the best he'll do. And so the slaves are thinking, so why wouldn't he want to help us out? Why would he want to give us an accountant? We don't need accountants. And so one of the slaves, he gets the idea that since the king doesn't want to help us and we don't have any other way to feed our family, I'm going to steal something from the king. I'm going to steal some food from the king. So he gets it all put together. He goes and steals from the king. And as he's coming back to his family, one of the king's men or one of the king's women sees him and realizes that the slave has just stolen from the kingdom. So his obligation is to go tell the king. So when he tells the king is really irate. Why would they steal from me? I'm giving them enough. They don't need any more. They never stole from my dad. I have to punish this guy. We have to do something, because if I don't stop this right now, all of them could start to steal from me. And so he asked all the king's men and the women to get that subject back in front of him. So the subject's in front of him, and he says to the subject, I need to ask you, did you steal from the kingdom? And the subject said, yes, sir, I did. And the king says, I don't want to hear anymore. I just need to know that you've stolen from the kingdom, and the rules of the kingdom stand. So that means that you have disrespected the king, you've disrespected the king's rules and laws, and you've disrespected the God who appointed me to be king. So that means I need to punish you. I need to punish you swiftly, publicly, and severely. And I'm going to do that. So I want the other people to come around. I want the other subjects to gather around. And as all the subjects are gathering around, he says to the subjects, he said, this young man has stolen from the king, and I've found him guilty of that, so I'm labeling him a felon. And a felon means that he has fallen from my grace. I no longer need to protect him anymore. Therefore, he's considered an outlaw. Outside of my laws, I can't protect him. And so she said, before I'm done, though, I want to punish this man, and I'm going to do it right now. And so the process begins. The king punishes him brutally, quickly, and severely. And the people leave, and they just are like overwhelmed by the brutalness of the king. So as they're going home, they're thinking, you know, the other king, he never did that to us. But they realize that they don't have any options because the king's not going to give them anything. So they start to conspire, and as they're conspiring, they decide they're going to actually steal from the kingdom some more. So randomly they steal from the areas that they're working in, and then some of the king's men see that they've been stealing from them. And when he sees they've been stealing from him, they can't catch anybody, so he goes and tells the king. Now just imagine, the king is irate. He's walking around, he's yelling at everybody. Why would they steal from me? I'm trying to do the best I can. Why would they do that? And so he says, what we need to do is put up more surveillance and have tougher punishment. So the next person we find doing that, I want you to find him, and we're going to punish him more severe than we punished anybody ever in history. And so another guy steals and he gets caught. And he stands in front of the king, and the king asked him if he stole from him. And the guy said, I did. He said, but. So I want you to just stop here for just a second. What would happen if the king listened to why he stole from him? He would realize, if he listened to him, that punishment is not going to address the cause of the subject's stealing. The punishment is only going to try to break that subject's spirit, will try to degrade his self-esteem so he doesn't think he even deserves what he's got, and he will create fear. Those three factors are the basis of punishment. Break their spirit, destroy their sense of self, and create fear. But what the king doesn't seem to realize is that he's also created hatred. They loved his dad, but they hate him. So if you have someone who hates you and you're their leader, you can rest assured they're going to conspire to get over on you. So the point of this whole story is this, that the original king and the people around the king had a network that would allow the information to come down from the king and to go up from the subjects. And if you don't have a communication process for that to happen, then you're going to have a lot of disruption, a lot of violence, a lot of hatred. And I don't care how hard you try to punish people. The judge said he was going to punish me with a meaningless life for 22 years in federal prison. I can tell you there's still people dealing drugs, knowing that they could get 20 years. So why don't we have some network of communication as to why we have disruptive actions, disruptive behavior in our communities? When you see disruptive behavior and you think we need to teach them a lesson, the lesson that needs to be taught is the lesson you need to learn, not the lesson that the subject needs to learn. If we listen to the subjects, if we listen to the people who we're leading, we can be better leaders, and we will have to give up some of our privilege, some of our wealth. Not at all. But I need you to hear me, that America needs to understand that the reason we are disruptive, we have over 2 million people in prison, it's not because we have bad people, it's because we do not have a connection from the top to the bottom to have the communication actually be heard. I know that because I lived in a prison for 20 years. And I know what it's like to live in an institution where they do not listen to you, but they punish you if you don't do what they say. So folks, if you're a leader, I want you to think about the key thing is to listen, not to exert your power. And you will have more power if you listen. You will have less power if you don't listen. Thank you very much.